Hello, this is Christina with the Stage Nature Center, here today to do a live Facebook program for you guys. I'm going to just take just a minute here. I'm just trying to get things connected. The internet seems to be kind of slow today, so I hope you guys are able to connect with me. Hello, I see a few people are checking in now. Glad that everybody's, or at least some of you are able to get connected with me today. Apologize for the late start. Had a little bit of trouble getting connected here. So I'm going to start the presentation here in just a moment. All right, I think I'm going to get the camera connected here. All right. Hello again, this is Christina with the Stage Nature Center here in Troy, Michigan. I hope everybody is doing well and is able to get connected. I see that a few more people are joining us today. I know it's a nice, bright, sunny day today, so I'm sure a lot of people are wanting to be outside. I'm supposed to get into the 90s today, so it's going to be a nice, warm day too. Anyways, so I'm here at the Stage Nature Center in Troy, here to do another one of our live Facebook programs for you guys. Today we're going to be talking about pond life and exploring what type of wildlife we can see at the pond and see what we do as part of one of our public programs that we hope to be doing for you guys this coming summer, which is a pond dipping program. So before we get started on that, just to give you a few pieces of information, again, the Nature Center building is still closed, but we are planning on reopening next week, Tuesday, June 16th. We'll be going back to our normal hours, which is 9 to 3 on Tuesday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturdays. So we're excited to get to reopen. We will be having a change in some procedures for reopening to keep people safe. We will be only allowing a maximum of 10 people in the Nature Center building at a time to minimize the number of people sharing the space. We also are going to be asking that people wear face coverings when they come to the Nature Center. If you are wanting to go on the trails but don't want to come into the building, you can definitely do that. Normally, we ask people to come through the building during the daytime to go out on our trails, and then during our closed hours, people can access the trails outside the building. However, during this time, because we understand that people may not want to come into a building and expose themselves, have a higher risk of exposing themselves, you will be able to just access the trails directly after we reopen the building. So you can come into the building and check things out inside. We'll have an updated exhibit space for you guys, which will be awesome. Or you can just go out on the trails. So we're excited to be able to do that again. We do have some programs coming up that you all are welcome to join us on. We are limiting the number of participants for our programs for a while, again, to keep us safe and healthy. So when you sign up for that right now, we're limiting our programs to 10 people per person, especially for the indoor space, or per instructor, per naturalist. Anyways, so keep that in mind when you're registering, that you might, if you have an idea of a program you want to register for, you might want to do that sooner rather than later, since we are limiting our numbers for that. And we're going to be requiring pre-registration for all of our programs right now to, again, minimize contact, make sure that everybody is safe, and make sure that we can control the number of people in our programs. So those are a few updates on what's going on here. But I will continue to do these live Facebook programs through the end of June, just to keep connected with you all, and knowing that some of us are probably not feeling that comfortable about venturing out too much yet, so I'm going to continue to do these programs to the end of June. So again, as I've mentioned before, if this is not your first time joining us, or if it is your first time joining us, we haven't been able to do our in-person programs now for several months. So if you are able to donate today, you can donate through the donate button on our Facebook page. That will help support us, because while we're not able to do our programs, we're also not bringing in funding for the Nature Center, which we are a nonprofit organization that relies very heavily on the funding from our programs. So that's one way you can support us. By joining us here today, you're supporting us. By coming out to the Nature Center, you're supporting us. So thank you for everyone for their wonderful support. Hi to everyone that I've seen for, over on the trails or in person around the Nature Center the last few weeks. Again, thank you so much for your support. You can also donate on our website, that's stagenaturecenter.org, if you'd rather do that than on our Facebook page. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the program, which again is about pond life. And I've got lots of videos to share with you showing you what we do for pond dipping programs. One of the things that we did is we did a kind of a mock pond dipping program. So that way you could see what it's like when we do go out to the pond with groups of people and we look for wildlife in the pond. There's lots of wildlife around the pond and in the pond. So you're gonna do a virtual kind of pond exploration with me today. So I'm really excited to get to share this with you. So I'm gonna switch back over here to the presentation. As always, put your questions in your comments. I'll try to answer them during the presentation. If I'm not able to do that, then I'll go back to the questions after the presentation and answer the ones that I was unable to answer during the presentation. Also, if for some reason we lose connection or you can't hear me or something's not working right, since I can't talk with you, please feel free to let me know in the comments that something isn't not working right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to the presentation here. Okay, so this first image that we have up here is an image that I took a couple days ago of some mallards, which are ducks. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with them, on our pond. And I do have some video that we're going to watch here in just a little bit of the mallards. I think they're quite entertaining to watch anyway. So we'll get to see those here in just a little bit. Okay. So this first video I have is just of some fish that were swimming just under the water. Well, obviously they're under the water, but just under the surface is what I should say. And this fish here that you can see is called a bluegill. We have a lot of bluegill in our pond. I should also let you know that our pond that we have here at the Stage Nature Center, if you've ever been here before, is a man-made pond. So this pond was created through as part of the Rouge River. We dammed it up so that way we could have a little pond so we could see some different kinds of wildlife and do these pond programs. So that's how our pond ended up here at the Stage Nature Center, is that it's part of the Rouge River that's dammed up. We are in the headwaters of the Rouge River here at the Stage Nature Center. So as I've mentioned in other programs before, we play a very important role in keeping the stream healthy and keeping the wildlife healthy, because anything that goes into the water here will travel downstream along the Rouge River to other areas where the Rouge River goes through. So we try very hard to keep our part of the stream healthy. And Friends of the Rouge is an organization, nonprofit organization that's basically volunteers, and they also help with that. They do surveys out here, and they help to keep us notified of what's going on with the stream that comes through our park. So the next video that I'm going to show you here is an underwater video that one of our staff members took. It's a really neat video. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. But it shows the bluegill fish up nice and close in the camera. And I'll tell you a little bit more about bluefish while we watch it. Or bluegill fish while we watch it. But bluegill are a pretty common fish that we're going to see here in Michigan. And this is one of the animals we can see in our pond. So bluegill fish they're native to lakes and streams in the Great Lakes and Mississippi River systems, as well as the St. Lawrence River systems. They have a pretty big range, but they like to live in lakes that are in slow-moving and that have slow-moving rocky streams. So we do have a lot of bluegill that we can see here in the pond. They can often be found in deep beds of weeds, which we do have quite a bit of plant matter in our pond. You can kind of see them here picking things up from the debris or from the dirt in the pond. These guys have very small mouths, and it's an adaptation to eating small animals that they find in the water. They are carnivores. They eat primarily invertebrates, so animals that don't have a backbone, like snails, worms, shrimp, aquatic insects. They'll eat small crayfish, which we do have lots of crayfish, as you'll see here in a little bit, in the pond and in the river that comes through here. And they'll eat zooplankton. They sometimes will eat small fish, such as minnows, and sometimes plant material such as algae. These guys are usually active at dawn, so the first part of the day, and during the daytime they like to stay hidden under cover. They like to move to shallow water to spend the nighttime. And their schools of fish will contain anywhere between 10 to 20 fish. I love this part of the video. You can see here that the bluegill are very curious. So when we put the camera in the pond, they always come over and check it out to see what they're looking at. Yesterday when we were pond dipping, we had all these bluegill come over to see what it was we were doing in the pond. They get close enough to check it out, and then they can move quickly away if they need to. So these guys can actually live 4 to 6 years in the wild, so it's a pretty good lifespan. These guys play an important role in the ecosystem. They are an important prey species for larger fish predators, and they also have an impact on insect populations by eating aquatic larvae, which we'll see here in just a little bit. There's a lot of different types of insect larvae you can find in ponds, and that's one of the things that we look for when we're dipping in the ponds. All right. So this next video is just showing some of the smaller fish that we see in the ponds, the little minnows. Let's see here. Oh, my computer is decided to freeze up. I apologize. Give me just a second here to try to reopen the presentation. I apologize about that. I'm not sure what happened. It decided to close. So give me just a second here. I don't know if you guys can still see and hear me. If somebody wants to leave me a comment to let me know that you're still hearing me, just to make sure that it wasn't just the presentation that froze up. I just want to make sure I'm still connected here. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I see somebody says that we can see and hear you. Awesome. Okay. Give me just a second here. I'm trying to get this presentation reconnected. Technology can be wonderful, and sometimes it can also be frustrating. One reason I look forward to seeing you guys in person again. All right, let's see if I can get this reconnected. Okay, I apologize for the silence. I'm not very good at multitasking, so I'm trying to focus on getting this reconnected for you guys. Okay, let's hope that this works here. So what you guys should be seeing here is a video of some really small fish that we see here in the pond. We do see minnows here in the pond. A great food source for the larger fish and for things like aquatic larvae of insects. It looks like the connection is a little bit slow. Hopefully you guys are seeing this okay. All right. So as I mentioned before, I'm giving you kind of a virtual taste of what we do for our pond dipping programs. So we are doing a pond dipping program this coming summer if everything goes okay. Sometimes our pond is really dry, and part of the reason we have an issue with the pond starting to dry up at sometimes more than others is because it is a man-made pond. It's also connected to Lake Charnwood, and they're connected through the Rouge River as well. So there's a variety of different things that can cause the water levels to change. So if we have enough water in the pond, then we'll do a pond dipping program, and that's called Peek at the Pond. And in case you're interested, that'll be Saturday, July 11th from 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. You can go onto our website, stagenaturecenter.org, and register for that program. And it's for ages 3 to adult. Now, here you'll see one of our staff members. She is standing in the pond with her boots. When we do the public pond dipping program, we don't stand in the water. We have the participants stand at the edge of the water and use the net to get to the water. But right now our pond is so low that we didn't really have any shoreline that wasn't just mud to sink down into to stand on. So Miranda here, one of our naturalists here at the Stage Nature Center, got into the water with her boots so we could get some things out from the pond. So that's what you're going to see here. So we use these nets, actually they're sifters, and we connect them to a pole. And here she found a damselfly larva, or nymph, I should say. I apologize. So this is a young damselfly. So a lot of insects start off their life in the water. And damselflies and dragonflies, they start their lives off in the water. So they're aquatic when they're young, and then as they grow, they come out of the water and they get their wings, and then they live on land and in the air. So that was a damselfly larva. Here is a picture showing you a damselfly and a dragonfly. We didn't find any dragonfly nymphs yesterday. I keep saying larva, but the technical term for them is nymphs. They are young dragonflies and damselflies. And we didn't get to find any dragonflies. We were hoping to find them. They are quite a bit bigger typically than damselflies, depending on the types of dragonfly nymph that we're finding and the age of it. But a couple different things you can see here is the damselfly, which is on the left-hand side, has a much longer abdomen compared to the dragonfly. The dragonfly tends to have a shorter, stockier abdomen that's much larger. You'll also see that the damselfly has these 3 projections coming off of it that look kind of like tails at the end of the abdomen, whereas a dragonfly doesn't have those really long projections coming off of the end of the abdomen. So that's another way you can tell the difference between a damselfly and a dragonfly. They really do look like aliens, especially the dragonflies. That's one of the reasons why I love doing this program, is so people can see them up close, because they look pretty crazy. And dragonfly nymphs can get pretty large. They're really neat to see. So here's another video showing us dipping in the pond. So one way you can tell an adult damselfly from an adult dragonfly, and I'm going to show you some videos here in just a little bit, is that damselflies, they tend to have a thinner abdomen even as adults. They tend to be a little bit daintier. And when they are perched on a plant, they hold their wings closed. Whereas a dragonfly will hold their wings open when they're perched on a branch. So here's another damselfly that we found in the pond. Again, it doesn't have its full wings yet because it's still aquatic. I'm gonna check the computer here and see if I have any questions. Okay, I see that people are seeing things okay. Thank you for letting me know. So here is a damselfly actually. This is called the ebony jewel wing, one of my favorites. They have this really pretty green color that really shines in the sun. And we'll see more of the ebony jewel wing here in just a little bit when I have some more video to show you. So Miranda right now, what she is doing is she's sifting through the plant matter and the mud to find things. Because the dragonflies, damselflies, and other aquatic insects or aquatic invertebrates will oftentimes hide in that mud. So we sift through it. There's a couple of damselflies there. And here I was using this. So what we do is oh, there it is. We think that was an aquatic sow bug that we found there. So what we do is we take these little bins, we put some water in it, and we put the aquatic invertebrates that we are finding, which again, invertebrates are animals that don't have a backbone and have an exoskeleton. We are vertebrates. Humans are vertebrates. We have a backbone. So we use these bins with water to put what we find in the bins so we can look at them up close. And we do this with the public too. And one of the things that we'll be doing this year, because we have this new through a grant that we received, is using microscopes that have a screen on them where we can see what we're looking at nice and close. They're a little bit easier to use than a typical or regular microscope. So when I mentioned this earlier, but one of the things we find a lot of in the pond are crayfish. And I apologize, my computer seems to have frozen again. Give me just a moment here. I'm not sure quite what's going on. So you should see a crayfish up on the screen. And this is a video, but my computer seems to have frozen. I don't know if you guys can still see me or see. Excuse me. Hear me okay? Okay. I'm not sure why it's doing this. I might have to close this again to get it restarted. Oh, I apologize. Like I said, technology can be wonderful when it works. When it doesn't work, it can be quite frustrating. And for some reason today, technology is not wanting to work with me. Okay. Okay, I don't know. Can you guys still hear me? I'm looking at another device where I'm watching the presentation for comments because my computer that I'm doing the presentation on has completely frozen up. So if you guys do hear me, I may have to restart my computer here because it's not letting me do anything. So I'm not sure if you guys can still hear me. If you can hear me, I apologize. I think I'm going to have to restart the program. I may have to disconnect here because everything is frozen. It won't let me switch back and forth between Facebook anymore. So I don't know if you guys are still hearing me. Well, okay, I see that you're still hearing me. So if you can hang in just a minute. If I disconnect, I will reconnect. So just hang on our page and you'll see it when I reconnect. I think I'm going to have to force quit my computer here because it has completely frozen up. So I apologize. So I hope to see you guys here again in just another minute. Okay, I think we're back. if anybody wouldn't mind confirming with me that I see it looks like that I'm reconnected with some of you. So hopefully you're able to get reconnected okay. If you want to let me know if you are reconnected and seeing the screen. Again, the crayfish should be up on the screen. Oh yes, I see somebody say we are back. Excellent. I'm glad that I was able to get that back up again. So hopefully everybody is able to get reconnected okay. You should be seeing a crayfish on your screen. Fingers crossed that my computer doesn't freeze again. That way we can keep looking at all of these things that we have found here in the pond. So if you're reconnecting, this is at with the Stage Nature Center in Troy, Michigan, and we're doing the pond program where I'm showing you some different things that we are seeing in the pond. And we have seen some video of some damselflies, of the bluegill fish that we see in the pond, and now we're about to see some video that I took of crayfish in the pond. So let's see if we can get this going here. Okay. I'm gonna check here. I'm using another device to check to make sure I can see your comments. And it looks like people are saying we're back. Awesome. Okay. So this is a crayfish that I was videotaping in the pond just a few days ago. We have lots of crayfish in the pond. It's actually a pretty good size, although it looks like this guy may have had a hard time because it looks like he's missing, he or she, can't really tell without looking at the crayfish out of the water. It looks like it's missing one of its front claws. So it may have gotten into a fight with another crayfish or with another animal. I was taking this on the pond just the other day, so if you hear talking in the background, that was another family that was enjoying watching the pond and the stream. So that's what you're hearing in the background. So if you had joined us a while ago, you may have met the crayfish that we have here at the Stage Nature Center that lives in one of our displays. These are called virile crayfish, which are a native species. If you joined us in that other presentation, you may have learned that there are non-native species of crayfish in Michigan that we do look out for. So far, we haven't found any yet in our stream or in our pond, which is really good. And this is a native species of crayfish, again, called the virile crayfish, which they like permanent ponds, swamps, lakes, and slow-flowing streams. The one that we have at the Stage Nature Center, if you come to visit us when we reopen, we caught one, it was quite a bit smaller, and now it's full-grown. And we've had that crayfish for just about a year, or a little bit less than that. And they can live to be about 2 to 3 years old, so we may have this crayfish for a while. Actually, we did a naming fundraiser for the crayfish that we have here at the Nature Center as part of our live Facebook programs, and the winner named our crayfish Lucy. So the crayfish that we have living with us is Lucy. This is not Lucy, this is one of the wild crayfish in the pond. And you can see it actually looks like it's looking for food. So they are what we call opportunistic omnivores. Omnivores means that they eat both plant and animal matter. So they'll feed on live and decaying vegetation. They'll also feed on insect larvae, which we started talking about earlier. You can find dragonflies in the pond, damselflies in the pond as nymphs. And they'll also eat small fishes, which as you saw in the video earlier, we do have a lot of small fish in the pond. And then sometimes they'll eat dead animal matter as well. This day when I was taking this video, there was actually about 10 or more crayfish just kind of all in this area, which was kind of neat to see. And the water was clear enough that I could see most of them pretty well, although this guy was up a little bit in the more shallow area where I could get a good video of him. Typically, crayfish are very shy and secretive, so when you come see the crayfish at the Nature Center that lives in our displays, she does have a rock cave that she can hide under, and sometimes she's right out in the open, especially if she's really hungry. But a lot of times, if movement comes by, she'll kind of back into that little cave. They're really good at moving backwards. They can move very fast backwards to get away from danger. When they sense danger, they'll raise their pinchers and arch its back. And like I said, they'll also shoot backward in the water. So here is a video of the crayfish that lives with us at the Stage Nature Center. And I wanted to show this to you because it shows this crayfish eating, and it's really neat to watch it try to watch it pick up food and stick it in its mouth parts and eat it. So this is what I'm going to show you here, since we couldn't see that angle from the crayfish that was in the pond. So you can see those mouth parts moving really fast, using his pinchers, or her, I'm sorry, our crayfish is a girl, using her pinchers to look for food, and then she'll quickly, if you can find or see it happen, it's really fast, she'll pick it up and stick it in her mouth really fast. And there it is. And she'll work on it. So these crayfish, they can grow up to be about 5 inches. I would say our crayfish is probably getting close to that. We haven't actually measured her. Oh, there's some more food there. We haven't measured her to see exactly how big she is, but she has gotten pretty big. And typically their body is an olive brown color with dark brown markings on the abdomen. They can have a little bit of pinkish and red in their exoskeleton, which is the outer part of their body. And their pinchers are pretty smooth, but they have orange tips to them. So some people will think when they see crayfish, wait, that looks a lot like a lobster, which they are cousins of lobsters. So sometimes when we're doing our pond programs and we show people, especially kids, they'll say, oh, look, it's a lobster. It does look very similar to a lobster, and people do eat crayfish. So other names for them are called crawdads and mudbugs and crawfish. These are different names that people call them. So here's a video of the crayfish that Miranda caught in our pond. So here it's demonstrating it arching its back and raising its pinchers. And again, this is what they do when they sense danger. So it's, when you're trying to handle them, you try to handle them in such a way, like Miranda's, you can see in this video, that you're not going to get caught by those pinchers. And here's a little bit of video once we put the crayfish in the pan. So again, these are the pans that we use to investigate the things that we find in the pond, and we put some water in them so the animals are still healthy. And we look at them for a little bit, and this is the video of that same crayfish actually trying to climb out. Believe it or not, they're really good climbers. So Lucy, our crayfish here at the Stage Nature Center, she does have a top to her tank, and we even put a rock on top of the tank in the corner where she can climb onto the filter, because she could potentially climb out if she wanted to. And of course, we don't want that to happen. So this next video is showing the big crayfish that Miranda caught in the water, but then in her hand is actually a really tiny crayfish. And it's amazing to see the difference. This is probably the same species, but this is a very young crayfish compared to an older crayfish. When we caught Lucy, the one that we have here at the Stage Nature Center, she wasn't quite as small as the one in the hand here, but she was a little bit bigger than this. But again, it's pretty cute to see how small they are when they're very young. Females lay hundreds of eggs that the female will carry with her until they hatch in about 2 to 20 weeks. And as you can see here, the baby crayfish, they look just like the adult crayfish. And when they grow, they shed their exoskeleton. So Lucy, our crayfish, has shed her exoskeleton quite a lot as she's grown, because she's grown a lot as she's been living with us here. And here's one more video of this crayfish. You can see its colors here. Again, it's mostly an olive brownish body. They have little hints of a kind of a pinkish tone. Okay, so before I move on, I'm just going back to the questions just to see if we have any. Somebody said, why is it bad if non-native crayfish are here? Non-native crayfish, they can take over the habitat of the native crayfish and make it really hard for them to survive. And when you start affecting the native populations of a species, then that can affect the food chain, for example. So it's it's about balance of nature. And when you bring in a non-native species, it affects that natural balance, and it has a big effect on everything in the food chain and in the environment. So here is a clam that we found, or that Miranda found, should I say, in the water. Again, we sift through the plant debris because a lot of times that's where we find things. This is another damselfly. We found tons of damselflies yesterday when we were dipping in the pond. So here you can see there's multiple damselflies, and there's actually different types of damselflies in here. You can find them in different colors, and the shapes of their bodies or their tails might be a little bit different. And I love watching them swim. This little bug here that's going across the top of the water is called a water strider. It's not a spider. A lot of people think we're saying water spiders. There are spiders that are aquatic, but this is called a water strider, and it's an insect, not a spider. It has 6 legs instead of 8, and they can skim across the top of the water with their feet. Here is a collection of a few more things we found. So we have a few damselflies there and also an aquatic snail. We find a lot of aquatic snails in the water, in the pond here. When we're doing pond programs, if we keep the animals for a while, if we have a school group we want to show them, we do sometimes we'll tend to separate out the crayfish from the other small things that we find because they might eat them. And even if we had dragonflies, the dragonfly nymphs might eat the other small aquatic invertebrates that we have found. And there's the crayfish in between there, the damselflies, the really small crayfish. Here's a couple more damselflies that we found. You can see them using their tail there. I'll stick them back in the bin here so they can stay in the water. So this is one of my favorite programs to do. It's really neat to find everything that we find in the water and see how much life is underneath the surface of the water and in the muck, because a lot of these things are in the muck. And when we do these programs with the kids, a lot of times they'll get the muck in their net and they'll say, oh, and they'll dump it. But you know what? That's actually a great place to look for things moving around is in that dirt. And so we spend some time sifting through that dirt. Here you can see some of these small fish that we caught, or that Miranda caught. Should give her that credit. It can be hard to catch, but there were a whole bunch of them collected on the shore. You'll also see moving really fast in this video, I tried to get him, but he was moving so fast, was an aquatic beetle zipping around. So there are different types of aquatic beetles that you can find in a pond like this. One of them is called a predaceous diving beetle, which is a really neat one. And they're called predaceous because they eat other aquatic invertebrates. So here's a close-up of one of these aquatic beetles in my hand. There are also these little insects called backswimmers, for example, that you'll find. This is not a backswimmer, and backswimmers actually aren't beetles. But what's really neat about backswimmers is that they swim on their back, and that's why they're called that. So here in this video, we're showing what we do when we're done with the pond dipping. We always put all of the wildlife back. We like to observe nature here and explore it, but it's always important that we're not impacting it. So after we're done, even with the public programs, we put everything that we find back in the pond to go back to its life. Here is one of the dragonflies that we see a lot of around the pond right now, and hopefully at some point we'll start finding dragonfly nymphs. I'm sure we will. We just had a really hard time with it yesterday. But this dragonfly is called a common white-tail skimmer. You can see its white tail there, and if you see closely in the video, you'll see it moving its head all around, and you'll also see it breathing and moving its abdomen. So, like I mentioned earlier, dragonflies, when they're at rest, like this dragonfly is, their wings are spread open. They're flat. Damselflies, like the one I showed you earlier, the green one, that was called ebony jewelwing, damselflies hold their wings closed when they're at rest. And that's one way you can tell the difference between them. Here's some more videos. So this dragonfly Actually, I was able to get so much video of it because it kept coming back to the same spot. It would fly off over the pond and then come back to the same spot. So the nymphs, what they do is as they're getting ready to turn into their adult stage, they climb up out of the pond on things like tall grasses, and they'll hang from those grasses as they do their final molt into their adult stage. So I showed you a dragonfly nymph earlier, and you can see how different it looks from the nymph to the adult. When they're nymphs, they do have their wing pads, but obviously they're not flying yet. Okay. Here is the damselfly I was telling you about. We saw a little bit of video earlier. They're really pretty. I love that green color. We get a lot of them around here, so they're very common. And again, you can see the damselfly, it's holding its wings closed when it's at rest. And again, this is called the ebony jewel wing. Another thing we can see in the pond are turtles. So this is a painted turtle. This is some other more underwater footage that Miranda got with her GoPro. You may have met our painted turtle here in one of the earlier live streams, Facebook live streams that we did. His name was Benny. Our painted turtle is not quite as big as this one. But these types of turtles are aquatic, and they're pretty common. They have those distinctive yellow and red markings on their head, limbs, and shells. They breed May through July, so you could be seeing babies anytime now. They like to eat aquatic plants, insects, snails, crayfish, tadpoles, and carrion. Now, we weren't able to get any tadpoles in any of the pond dipping that we did yesterday, but we do see tadpoles and lots of frogs around our pond. Okay, this last set of videos here that we're going to see are of the mallards. I actually took quite a bit of video of the mallards. They're really fun to watch, and there was a pair hanging out on the pond. Sometimes we see pairs, sometimes we see males together, but this was a pair of mallards that's actually been hanging out on the pond the last few days. This mallard is over in the drier part of the pond. I had mentioned earlier that right now part of our pond is really dry, and it looks like this mallard is looking for food. So what he's doing with his beak is he's sifting it through the water and the muck to find food. Now I say he because this is a male. In just a minute you'll see the female, but the males have the bright green head, whereas the females don't. The females are more of a brownish color. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But mallards, they will eat a variety of foods. So there's the female. They'll eat things like vegetation, insects, worms, gastropods, arthropods, and they'll eat many, many more things than that. They're not restricted to those foods. Sometimes they become a pest to humans because they'll take advantage of human sources of food, such as getting food from grain from crops. Sometimes you'll see them at your bird feeders, trying to get food from the bird feeders. So again, here you can see the difference between the male and the female. You can see how the female blends in really well. Sometimes when there's a female on the pond, I don't see her right away. The male usually sticks out, but you can see how different in coloration they are. One of the things a lot of people don't get to see, though, is the color, this bright bluish purple color that's on the wing of the female mallard. Most of the time, that is kind of hidden underneath the feathers, so you don't get to see it a lot. But when the sun is shining like it was when I took this video, you can really see that stripe of bluish purple on her wing, just like the male has. So a lot of times in the animal world, especially bird world, when there's a difference between the boys and the boys are the bright, pretty ones, and the girls not so much. So usually the males have the bright colors to attract the females, but the females do have an important role and a reason for not having those bright colors, for having more dull colors. And that's because they're probably the ones sitting on the nest. And when you're sitting on a nest or you're with your babies, you don't want to have bright colors because you don't want to stand out to a predator that might want to eat you. So those brown colors help the female to blend in with the nest and with the babies, so that way that she can help keep them safe. So if there is a difference in coloration between the male and the female, that's usually why, because of the female needing to blend in with the nest. So these two mallards, they spend a lot of time eating at first, and then they spend a lot of time cleaning themselves. So I got some great video footage of that. It's really fun to watch them clean because they really are very meticulous, using that beak to get in between their feathers. Then as they finish cleaning here, they're getting ready for an afternoon nap. So you can see her stretching her leg, and she'll kind of curl it up into her feathers here. I'm not quite sure what she was looking at. There was something that she kept looking at down towards the water. But again, you can see here how that bluish purple color that's in her wing is kind of hidden. So depending on how she's holding her wings, all you might see is the brown. But if you're lucky and she's stretching, then you might get to see that bluish purple color, especially when the sun hits it. So mallards, they'll breed, the hens will breed as yearlings. So they'll breed when they're very young. But they have better success when they're older hens. It's hard to say how old these two are. They start pair bonding as early as October, and this pair bonding continues through March. So these two probably spent some time pair bonding this past year. And then after mating occurs, the male mallards will leave the female. And the female spends all of the time taking care of the babies. And the females, the hens, will usually lay about 9 to 13 eggs in a nest. And this nest is usually located on the ground or near a body of water because that's where they like to be. It takes them about 26 to 28 days to hatch. So we haven't seen any mallard babies or a nest. Hopefully they will have one nearby. We did see Canada geese with babies this year, and they had a nest, but they soon left with their babies. Not quite sure where they went to or what happened, but the babies hatched out and then they were gone, but they did spend a lot of time around the pond as well. Okay, so those were the videos that I had to share with you guys today. I'm going to switch back over here and also check to see if there are any more questions. So if you have a question, please feel free to put it up here on the screen. And I'm double checking to see if there were any comments or questions that I missed. Again, if there were any that I missed, I will definitely go back through after the program and check to see if there were any questions that I missed. And I don't, from what I can see right now, I don't see any questions that I've missed. But then again, the internet's been kind of wonky as well, so it's possible that there's a question up there that's not showing up. So I hope you all enjoyed seeing the wildlife that you can see here in and around the pond. It's really a neat way to explore wildlife. There's so much more going on underneath the surface of the water than you would ever imagine. One thing I didn't get to take a video of that I was really excited about, but it was so fast, was a very young snapping turtle. When I was out there taking video, he was moved for just a moment from the muck and then he disappeared. It wasn't very big. I'd say it was probably about this big. There was a nest of snapping turtles last summer into the early fall that hatched out, and it could have been one of those babies that made its way down to the pond, or that we helped make its way down to the pond. When they nested, the snapping turtle nested last summer, it did nest up near the building, and so the babies, when they hatched out, they were all crossing the sidewalk, and they looked like little clumps of dirt, and we were worried that people would step on them. So we did help some of them across the sidewalk and down towards the pond, so that way people wouldn't accidentally step on them. And I think there were probably about 25 snapping turtle babies that we saw and helped cross. So she may nest again up towards the building this year. It's not the first time we've had a snapping turtle nest up towards the building, so it's pretty exciting. But there's a lot of life that goes on in and around the pond. And if you would like to come explore that with us, again, I think I mentioned it earlier before I lost you guys, but we do have a pond dipping program coming this summer. It's called Peek at the Pond, and that's on Saturday, July 11th, and that is from 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's meant for ages 3 to adult. Little ones, because you're around the pond and you're around water, it can be a little bit dangerous for younger than 3 to try to do this activity. But the adults do attend with their children, and you'll get to use our nets to help look for critters in the dirt and in the water and see what we see. Except, again, you won't be standing in the water like Miranda was. So if you guys feel up to it and would like to join us for that, you can register on stagenaturecenter.org. You do have to register beforehand, as I mentioned earlier, and we are limiting the number of registrants to a small group so that way we can stay safe and healthy and keep good distance from each other. All right, well, I enjoyed having you all here today, and I apologize for the technology issues and having my computer freeze up in the late start. I appreciate everybody who is being understanding about this and hanging in there with me to see these programs. Otherwise, maybe I'll see you when we reopen next week, June 16th on Tuesday. So I hope everybody is staying safe and healthy, and I look forward to seeing everybody again. I will see you this coming Friday, again at 1 p.m. for another live Facebook program. All right. Take care. Bye.